Hello, cannedcream here, CC for short, and today I would like to talk to you about art style. Or, to be exact, how Friendship is Magic's physical design may have helped lead to its current success. Have you ever heard the general sayings about first impressions and how they're everything? Well, that's generally true. It's pretty much human nature to make snap judgments about a person, place, or thing based upon its outward appearance alone. On average, it takes only 4 seconds for a person to create an opinion on something based upon its looks, and 30 seconds to cement that judgment into our minds. Likely, this is carried over from our survival instincts since our earliest days, when it was imperative to make snap judgments whether or not something we're seeing was a possible threat. And while today we're not exactly worried about tigers lurking in thick woods, it's still a rather important survival technique, useful for warning us from entering places we find particularly shady or being around people we think are distrustful. Granted, it's not a perfect technique. For example, we're more likely to perceive people who are physically attractive as more trustworthy than people who are not. But enough with the intro to psych lessons. What does this have to do with MLP? Well, the idea came to me when I happened across an MLP Nintendo DS game called Pinkie Pie's Party that was using the old Gen 3 style for its cover art. And that got me thinking, if this was what Friendship is Magic looked like, would our community still be as large as it is today? Would it even exist at all? Let's not mix words here. My Little Pony, even the Friendship is Magic series, all looks pretty girly. Or at least falls into the stereotype that we as a society have labeled as girly. If you knew nothing about MLP and were to look at just a picture of the characters, your first impression would likely be that this is a show for girls based on 3 factors: the entirely female main cast, the soft pastel colors, and the main characters being ponies. Maybe if they were wolves or raptors, they would be perceived differently. Where's that picture of Chris Pratt when you need it? There we go. It is this initial assumption that MLP is a little girl's cartoon, and thus can't be any good, and thus shouldn't be watched by anyone else, which first turned so many people away from it, and likely still turns quite a few people away. And for as feminine as it does look now, it's not quite as much as it's been in past iterations. As you likely already know, Lauren Faust wanted to create a show that could be watched by anyone. And part of creating that openness had to go into designing the art style. In older interpretations of MLP, the ponies looked very much like ponies, with their large mouths and hard, angular faces. You could call them cute, sure, but they looked very much like animals. And in some cases, the ponies had these very awkward body styles that took them from cartoony to very cartoony. FIM goes against this. The bodies are far better proportioned, and the faces are more physically attractive. They are rounder, given smaller muzzles and mouths that look more akin to noses than any actual horse features. Overall, it's just a more pleasant appeal. It's sort of a combination of the better elements from the last 3 generations combined together and given a fresh coat of paint. Taking this into account with what I was saying earlier about the importance of physical appearance to first impressions, this likely lends heavily to what helped those first few adults sit down and give this show a chance. Remember, this was before the fan creations, before the word of mouth, before MLP had become the cultural staple it is now. These men and women were sitting down to watch something either alone or with their kids because it was an MLP show that did not look like the MLP shows from their youth. We're all told not to judge a book by its cover, but in a way, we kind of have to. It's just the way our brains are programmed. We are bombarded with so much visual information every moment of every day that we need to be able to instantly filter out that which does not interest us nor seems directly important. MLP is just one of 100 different cartoons on the air right now that ask for your attention. And because this generation of MLP was created with the idea of a global market across age and gender lines, its style and appearance needed to speak to each of these groups. Had the art staff stuck with the heavily horse-like appearances of Gen 1 and 2, or the strange proportions and Fisher-Price-like styling of Gen 3, we might not be here today. Because it's not always about the characters, or the story, or the humor, or the morals. All of that comes into play after the fact. It's how it looks when we first notice it that's important. Everything else is just a happy bonus. To quote a song I vaguely remember from my youth, "A cookie's just a cookie. It's the package that will sell." So what about you, dear listener? What do you think about MLP's various art styles over the years? Do you think that this current one helps sell it to males and adults? Whatever your thoughts, please post them down in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and as always,
stay pony, my friends.